You are not having a deja vu. This is yet another video, a new review of Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. My previous review was mostly a rant about the control scheme of the game. I decided to continue the game. I made a no-kill hard playthrough. I wanted to make this new video because this is going to be even more complete than the previous one. This time I am going to mention every single aspect of this game that is wrong, that is bad. I wanted to gather all the evidence I did, and I know these games, this series can be fun. I know you can have fun with these games, and with this game in particular you can have fun, but the problem is that there is a bunch of problems to this game, to this series in fact. Like I said previously, my first Metal Gear Solid game was the first one, and more or less I forgive the controls on that game, even though they are still bad. They are the foundation of these garbage controls, but it was a simpler game, so more or less the game back then felt playable. This time around I feel like this control scheme hasn't aged well at all. Now quickly I am going to go into some details about the remake that are also bad, but not a deal breaker per se, which is that to use HDR you have to be playing in full screen, and that produces an error which makes the game start in the incorrect screen if you have multiple screens, multiple monitors. The game is locked at 60 FPS. You can use an FPS unlocker, and you should be careful with that because some parts of the game will bug out if you use the unlocker. Fortunately, they fix themselves if you just limit the game speed to 60 FPS, either by removing the FPS unlocker or using rebuttoner, something like that. There are possible stealth detection bugs, like I said. Fortunately, in my playthrough I didn't find any instance of that. Maybe the only instance that happened was the one that I pointed out on my previous video. I am not going to point the same thing. If you are interested, go back and watch my previous video. I showed that there is a specific section of a guard that can detect you even though he can't see you. Let's go in depth with why I do believe this game is held down by its garbage control schemes. Like I said, the game mechanics aged like milk. I don't know if this is true for Metal Gear Solid 5 and even 4 because I haven't played those games. I am going to add that these games, but in particular this game, has very primitive stealth mechanics. And what do I mean with that? What I mean is that if you go and remember or go and play another game, another stealth game from that era, from the PS2 era, you will find out, for example, if you play Tenchu or if you play Shinobido, you will find out that there are many ways to interact or to make stealth kills, to be stealthy in those games. And in this game, in Metal Gear Solid 3, there is a lack of ways to interact or to be stealthy. The best thing you can do is to put a box as a costume. It's very mediocre in my opinion. On those games that I mentioned, you could even kill enemies from stealth while you were leaning on a wall, and in this game you can't even do that. It's very limited. Now, like I said, the controls are terrible, and I am going to go into detail why do I say this. The game has a problem with artificial difficulty due to the fucking controls. There are also artificial cheap difficulty sections in this game. Some people will say, like I said, oh, the original Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater had better controls. That's a lie. It's basically the same control scheme. And back then it was even worse because the camera was garbage, and not only that, the PS2 used pressure buttons, so that was a fucking circus too. Now, as I said before, the first game, I do believe it's acceptable, and it's not even the first game, I mean the first game in 3D. But on the sequels of that game, they decided to bloat the controls with more and more actions, and that bloat makes the controllers feel clunky. It's similar to the case of Monster Hunter controls. That series also has bloated controls, and it's also a chore to configure those controls to feel acceptable, especially if you're playing on keyboard and mouse. But at least on those games you have the option to even configure the control scheme to make them fit to keyboard and mouse. Here you don't even have that. Now let's talk about Snake disabilities, because you are using a disabled character. You don't believe me? Well, the guy is supposedly the best infiltration agent. He's the big boss. The guy can't sprint. He runs. He doesn't even run. He jogs. He jogs like JD Vance, dude. It looks ridiculous. He swims slow as fuck. He can't even jump. You have to roll. If you need to jump, you will have to use the roll button. You can't even go over certain structures. You can't even climb certain things. The guy can't even stand quickly after being thrown down to the floor. He's always hungry. All the time you're losing stamina. The purpose of all of this that I mentioned is to make the game artificially difficult. Now, this game is all about immersion, and the game does a very good job doing that, immersing you into the atmosphere, into the levels, into the level design. It's very well done. Now, I find it very linear to my taste, but it's well done. Not everything has to be open world, but the gameplay, it's at odds with that design, with that immersion. How is that possible? How is it that this gameplay is at odds with that immersion, with that design? Well, if what I said to you previously is not enough, let me show you more evidence of this. Snake, all of a sudden, can completely forget how to climb certain objects. Like I said, you climb over with the F button. Well, on certain objects you can't do that. You have to roll over them. You have to press space to resurface while diving, instead of F, which is the button that you use to climb. Why do you have to introduce a third button that is never used at all? F, while you're swimming, is to swim quickly, and quote unquote quickly, because the guy is slow as fuck, even though he's a special agent. Leaning to a wall, at least with keyboard and mouse, it's a fucking nightmare. Like I explained on my previous video, if you move the camera while you're moving around while leaning on a wall, Snake will stop leaning to the wall, and he will in fact move away from the wall, all because the controls are designed with the analog stick in mind. Sometimes you can even aim while you're leaning to a wall, for no fucking reason. Sometimes you can even move while you're leaning onto a wall, for no reason. Let's talk about close quarters combat, or CQC. To achieve certain techniques, certain movements, it's just clunky. Trying to CQC control an enemy, which means you grab the enemy from behind, you throw them to the floor, and then you point your gun at them, and Snake will say, freeze. That is CQC control, and that is what I'm talking about. Trying to do that chain of actions, it's very clunky. It's not very responsive. Many times you will have diverse unwanted outcomes trying to pull that off, and that will end with you being discovered and triggering a fucking alert, because maybe for some reason Snake just let go of the enemy because you didn't press fast enough, because you didn't press the buttons in the correct order, because whatever the fuck, it's just clunky. And many times you will be triggering alarms left and right because you didn't press the buttons in the correct manner, or because the inputs are a piece of shit. Who knows? And it's very frustrating because sometimes you have traversed an entire zone and the final enemy sees you because the fucking controls didn't work out. You triggered a fucking alert and now you have to reload the entire section. Now, I thought that what I'm going to say now, it was a bug. I thought that all of a sudden I couldn't CQC control enemies. I couldn't throw them into the ground, and I couldn't even move while I was holding an enemy hostage. I didn't know why. I thought that it was a bug, but it turns out, just picture this stupidity. If you press the button to walk and you grab an enemy, or if you grab an enemy and you press the walk button, Snake will be unable to throw enemies down to the floor. He will also be unable to walk while holding an enemy. Why? I am going to tell you why. Because they want to make the controls clunky on purpose to achieve artificial difficulty. It makes no fucking sense. CQC is completely disabled when you're wearing the lab coat. Why? You can't do your martial arts while wearing a coat? How does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. CQC is also disabled when you're a prisoner. Being a prisoner makes you unable to use your martial arts techniques? Does that even make any sense? You can't CQC control certain enemies like those engineers you find in the hangar section. Why is that? Because cheap artificial difficulty. That is why. It doesn't make any fucking sense. You can grab those scientists, you can throw them to the ground, but when you point your gun at them, Snake will not say freeze. He will not say that. So the guys are going to stand up again and are going to make a fuss, and they are going to trigger an alarm. Cheap artificial difficulty. Snake can't stand quickly. He can't recover when he is thrown to the ground. You have to press the button C twice to stand up, which is fucking annoying. Whenever you are thrown down to the floor, Snake will stay there like a fucking idiot. The whole movement feels slow, feels sluggish, it's non-responsive, it feels non-responsive. The whole movement of Snake. The controls feel like those type of games with cheap controls to make them feel difficult. Games like Getting Over It, Baby Steps, those type of games that its only purpose is to be difficult because of the control scheme. These games feel like a watered down version of those games, but these games share similar characteristics. Now the whole game is filled with fucking menus. Equipping weapons and items, it's a chore. You have to go to the backpack menu, you have to equip separately your Q and E menus, then you have to go to the game, you have to press Q or E, then scroll to get the item you need. It's annoying. That was acceptable for the PS1, but not for this era, not for 2025. Give me a fucking break. Now boss fights become really annoying due to how the game system saves your items, your equipped items. So if you start a boss fight and you didn't have the correct items to face that boss fight, you have to equip them when you start the boss fight, and if you die when you load the game, you will have to re-equip the fucking items, etc. It's a chore. You have to manually save after you equipped all your items, and sometimes you can even save in a very compromised position while you're on a boss fight. So you have to do it really quickly. At the very start of the fight, you have to immediately go to your backpack, equip all your shit, and then make sure that you're saving really quickly before the fight even starts. The game doesn't even have a dedicated map button, so you can't press the M button and show the map. You can do that. So each time you want to see the map, you have to go to the fucking menu, press map, and then see the fucking map. So keyboard and mouse controls are basically non-existent. No shortcuts, nothing. Like I said, the movement keys are made for the analog stick, so it's going to feel clunky all the way. Now I'm going to talk about the cheap artificial difficulty and how this control scheme contributes to this artificial difficulty. There is a section of the game in which you have to plant C3 bombs into some fuel containers. Well, for starters, in that section you can CQC control the engineers working there, and you can't put the C3 if you are on an alert. Why? It's because artificial difficulty, cheap difficulty. It's absurd. How is being on an alert making Snake unable to just plant the fucking C3? It doesn't make any fucking sense. The section in which you have to steal the clothes or Major Raykov, it's annoying because you have to take the guy to a specific place to even do that. Why can't I just take him to the fucking bathroom and steal his clothes there? Why can't I just do that? Why do I have to take it specifically to a particular section? It's fucking dumb. The Eva escort sections are also annoying. The bitch is always hungry. It's very clunky to make her follow you. You can even change maps if you are on an alert. Again, artificial difficulty. Every boss fight feels cheap because all of the bosses rely on throwing Snake down to the floor. And why do you think it's that? You have to be a complete liar, a complete fanatic, to be completely disingenuous to not answer this truthfully. The reason why is that is because the developers know that throwing Snake down to the floor makes the player lose control of Snake. It's basically a stun lock, and it's infuriating as fuck. It's as infuriating as those times where in Monster Hunter you are also completely stun locked from one movement to the other, because the monster basically is playing ping pong with you. Losing control of your character is never going to be fun. It's always going to be annoying to the player. So that is a way to make cheap artificial difficulty. The Fury fight, the boss fight of the Fury, the guy uses a flamethrower. The flames of the flamethrower can throw you down to the floor. Well, not can, they will always throw you down to the floor. It's absurd. It's obvious they want Snake to be thrown down to the floor, because that is how they achieve difficulty. Now they also introduced bullet drop, because more realism. The sleeping gun now has massive bullet drop. It's very annoying to use, because they can say it's because of more realism. But then how is it realistic that Snake can't quickly get up? How is it realistic that you can't control with CQC certain enemies? Why is it realistic that Snake can't even use CQC while using a lab coat, for example? It's not realistic. The game is completely contradictory many times. Many sections of the game and many situations where you are spotted due to garbage control scheme, boss fights, the change of rules, all of a sudden they change the game mechanics. All of that is because they want to do cheap artificial difficulty. All of a sudden everything you knew now doesn't work. Now the rules have changed for no reason, only to make it artificially difficult. Now I did a non-lethal run, and I'm just going to say it's not worth it. The only thing that is kinda worth it is beating the bosses non-lethally. It's a chore because the boss fights are annoying due to the fact that Snake is always on the fucking floor, and overall it's basically a reload simulator. I can only imagine trying to go for 0 alerts. Overall it's just not even fun. You basically ignore all of the weapons. It's not fun. It's annoying. Don't even try to do it. It's not worth it. Now the injury system, the hunger system are just fucking gimmicks. They have no reason to be there. You can even use the injury system while you are being captured. So you remove all of your gear. All of your gear is gone. But somehow they left you with all your meds, all your bandages, all your stitches, everything. It makes no fucking sense. In fact, Snake is still using his communicator while being prisoner. How does that make any sense? It's stupid. They didn't remove this communicator from him. Why? The camouflage quick menu doesn't even show all the camouflages. You will always have to use the menu, the main menu, to change your camouflage, because the quick menu doesn't have all the camouflages all the time. All the camos are not shown constantly in that section. They will switch out. So you will have to go to the camo menu again. My last complaint is going to be that, and many of you are not going to like this part of the video, I don't give a fuck. Snake is a mega simp. He gets cocked by his teacher, he gets cocked by Eva, and at the end of the game, she reveals that the only reason she didn't kill him is because the boss, his teacher, another female, asked her to not do it. She doesn't even love him. Now, I always have an issue with female warriors, female soldiers. It's mega cringe. Even though it's a fantasy setting more or less, it is still cringe to me. The story is basically a mega simp story, and you can even say that ironically the message that it sends is that you should never trust women. Overall, I see why people like these games. I do believe that there is fun to be had with these games. Unfortunately, the whole control scheme, the whole artificial difficulty gets to you really bad. It is very rage-inducing. I don't believe these are masterpieces like the fanatics claim. They can be fun, but they are far from being masterpieces. The control scheme is bad. It's designed in a bad way on purpose because that achieves artificial difficulty, because they can't make a good difficulty on their own, and that translates to me as incompetence. So for me, the game at best is a 6 out of 10. I can't go higher. You can have some fun with the game, it's true. They are short playthroughs, like 13 hours or so. You can go multiple times and it's fun to do further runs with the gear that you unlocked with your previous run. That is fun. It's fun to vary the ways you are going to finish the game. But what is not going to be fun is this control scheme, this artificial cheap garbage that they design on purpose. It's not going to be really fun. You are going to constantly struggle with this stupid garbage, and the problem is that if you're trying to go for runs like non-lethal kills or don't triggering any alarms, you're going to have even a harder time now. All in all, I believe that this game aged like milk. Not as a whole, but the gameplay, the majority of the gameplay kind of aged like milk in many aspects. And in my opinion, this was one of the main things that should have been reworked. Now, graphics, new graphics are fine, they are good, they look cool, and the game doesn't even run bad. The reason why the game is locked to 60 FPS is because, like I said, unlocking the frame rate introduces some bugs. It's not because the game is not optimized. That's not the reason why the game is locked to 60 FPS. You go ahead, unlock the cap of the FPS, the game will run smooth as fuck. That's not the reason. Well, not smooth as fuck. There are sections that are clearly badly optimized. There are some sections that are really bad. But fortunately, the majority of the game runs really well. So all of that is fine. But the reason I am frustrated is because they didn't redesign the whole control scheme, and they can't even do that because the game will suddenly feel super easy. You already have people complaining that you can crouch walk because in the original you can do that. Now imagine if you could stand quickly, if you didn't have to mash the fucking C button to make a snake to fucking stand up. Guess what will happen? The game will be super easy. The game is not even hard. Seriously, the game is not even hard. My playthrough was on hard. Now I am going to go to the next difficulty and finish the game on that difficulty. But the game is not hard. What is hard is trying to get used to these garbage controls, to this garbage control scheme. And then on top of that, you have to deal with all of these sections of the game that make no fucking sense, that all of a sudden they change the roles on you. The things that you think will work not only don't work now, but they are completely the opposite of what you thought. All of these sections that are designed to make your life worse are annoying. They are cheap. They are artificial difficulty. All of this cheapens the game experience, and there are many good things about this game. Many good things, and this is why this situation is more frustrating, because it's kind of insulting that the game has all of these good things and they are overshadowed by these stupid design decisions because they are incapable of making a fair, difficult game. They have to rely on garbage controls, garbage control schemes, changing the roles to the player, limiting certain things, changing everything, making Snake a stupid moron that all of a sudden can't use CQC. All of that, it's insulting. It cheapens the experience. It hurts the game. And anybody that denies it, it's a fucking fanatic. It's a fucking fanboy. And we are playing this also on a PC. So not having proper keyboard and mouse controls, proper shortcuts, it's really bad. The movement is designed for analog sticks. So how do you think it's going to feel with WASD? It's going to feel like shit. So anyway, ultimately, there is a good game hidden behind all of this garbage. The problem is that there is a ton of garbage.